Mel Kiper Jr. reacts to Field Yates' Mock Draft 1.0. This is from ESPN, obviously. So Field Yates put out his mock draft. Mel Kiper is going to react to that, and I am going to react to both. Now, we're going to specifically focus in on who they have around the Saints. So the Saints are picking 14. We'll see who Fields has them taking, and we'll also see who gets taken around them, all right, to give us an idea of who may possibly be there, who might not possibly be there. We're doing a lot of draft coverage, so if you are interested in that, please give the channel a subscribe. Let's get into the video.
My mock 1.0 with you poking and prodding at it as you see fit. At the beginning of the mock draft, Mel will move with a little bit more speed because, believe it or not, you and I see the first 4 picks identically right now. The 5th pick is our first disagreement, but I don't think it's that strong of a disagreement. But let's dive right into it. I'll read my top 5 picks, Mel. Again, reminder to everybody, there are no trades. The order is as it is.
I cannot stand when mock drafters do trades. It's already hard enough to get the pick right, but then if you do a trade, some kind of hypothetical trade, you have no idea if the team actually wants to do the trade, and you do that, it throws the whole thing for a loop. Because then you're flipping 2 teams, you're flipping the spots, you're flipping their picks. If the trade doesn't happen, the picks can't happen, so I cannot stand when mock drafters do trades.
Is in real life right now. Chicago Bears 1 take Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC. Commanders take Jaden Daniels, quarterback.
I think what's going to end up happening is I think Drake May is going to end up going 2. Will it be to Washington? I don't know. Maybe it depends on, with Cliff Kingsbury going to Washington, it makes you think Washington's interested in moving up for Caleb Williams. But like I said, we're not doing trades. So I think Drake May, when it's all said and done, will work out better, combine better, test better than Jaden Daniels. I think May will be the second quarterback off the board. I think the rest of it's probably right. So Williams, I think Williams, May, Daniels, Harrison, and then if they want to have a tackle in there, fine. But the top 4 is definitely, the top 4 I would say is locked in. What order, 2 and 3? Yet to be seen, but I'd be shocked if it doesn't. I'd be shocked if this isn't your top 4.
Back from LSU, Patriots take Drake May, quarterback from North Carolina. First time we've had 3 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3 since 2021. And meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals say no more quarterback talk. We go to Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver from Ohio State. We round out the top 5 with the Los Angeles Chargers taking offensive tackle Joe Alt from Notre Dame. They kick him from left or right tackle. And there we have the top 5. Any thoughts on those first 5 selections?
First 4 look really good. You have to see what happens with Drake May through the process. Pro days, combines, all those things for quarterbacks. Some aren't even important. I know a lot of GMs have told me over the years, I already knew who I was taking when I went to the pro day. I just had to go because if you don't go, then you're not taking that quarterback. So you kind of go to just show everybody. Hey.
The reason I think May will test really well in like a combine workout situation, and when I mean test, I don't mean the Wonderlic test or whatever. I mean like running through drills and doing all that. Is because he's the prototypical quarterback. He's like kind of the Josh Allen kind of player where if you look at his just physical tools, those physical tools are what you stereotypically want in a quarterback. He's going to look athletic, he's going to have a strong arm, he's going to make great throws, he's going to be accurate, he's a super athlete. So all that stuff comes through in those workouts. I don't know why we're still doing workouts and combines and all that. I think it's just for the TV, because you would think that what they're doing on the field in college would be plenty to figure out how far they can throw the ball, or to figure out how fast they are, or to figure out how accurate they are. I don't know why them being in a 7-on-7 situation at a pro day is it means anything to these scouts, but it does. So I think May will be one of those guys who is a workout warrior and looks good.
Hey, I'm interested in all these quarterbacks, yet the decision has already been made. In terms of the top 5 Field, I'm looking at here, the Chargers. What is Jim Harbaugh, now Joe Ortiz coming in? What are they going to do, Greg Roman, new coordinator? What are they going to do at 5 to help Justin Herbert? You mentioned Joe Alt, heck of a player. Am I fighting Irish? Love the kid, loved his dad, love everything about him. You move him to right tackle like Lane Johnson. You got the offensive line solidified for a long time. You keep Justin Herbert upright, keep him healthy, right? And
Jim Harbaugh is also a guy who in his time as a coach wants to dominate the offensive and defensive line.
Let him do the things he needs to do. Or do you say, okay, we're okay there. We can find somebody, but we got to take a Brock Bowers because we're tight end centric. We're Jim Harbaugh's team, right? Jim Harbaugh loves tight ends. John Harbaugh, Ray, love tight ends. Or do you take the receiver like a Malik Neighbors or a Romo Dunze?
All right, so the talk about Brock Bowers there kind of perked my ears up because Brock Bowers, we've seen slip pretty far in every mock draft. We've seen him slip to around 14. I just released a video talking about how Brock Bowers is who I want the Saints to pick. It still is who I want the Saints to pick. So the idea that he could go at 5 is crazy. But it also shows everyone here, when I was in that video where I'm talking about Brock Bowers, he is that good of a prospect. The only reason he's not getting taken in the top 5 is because he's a tight end. If he was a wide receiver, he's getting taken in the top 5. Right, he's a better wide receiver, he's a better pass catcher, however you want to phrase it, than Malik Neighbors. But he's a tight end. And people haven't caught up to the idea that the tight end is basically just a wide receiver in the NFL. It's not, we got to get away from position-based, and we've got to get more to just pure impact. So Mel telling you right here that potentially Bowers could go 5, the idea that the Saints could find a way to get him, whether it's at 14 or trade up to 10, this just makes me want to see the Saints draft Bowers even more.
They said they have it's a great position to be in, Field. And it also brings to light the possibility of trading down. If you're sitting at 5 and all those players are there, all 4 of them are there, which we expect them to be, then can you move down a couple spots and you say, hey, we'll take any 1 to 4, but we'll pick up some extra draft choices? They could go that route as well.
That's what I would always do. Great idea from Mel there. If you're the Chargers and you want Bowers and you're at 5 and you have an idea of what 6, 7, and 8 are going to do, just trade down to 9 and take them there. Trade down. If you can find a partner, trade down, get some draft capital, and take your guy there. Don't force. That's why I never understand reaching on a player. If you're going to reach on the player, you might as well drop back. You might as well try and figure out who's not going to take them, safely drop down in the draft, and then take the guy anyways. So it's 1, it's not that much of a reach, and 2, you recoup a little draft capital.
They feel like these 4 guys are all even. We love them all. We'll take whichever one. Move down several spots, and you're going to get one of those 4 guys and be happy with it.
There are a couple of spots that I think are really interesting for them to consider moving down, or at least a couple of ways in which you could really convince a team to move up. One would be if there is a team that feels like they must have an offensive tackle and feels like the gap has grown enough between Joe Alt and the second best offensive tackle in the entire draft process that they would want to move up to pick 5 to.
Highly doubt that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, we're going to skip ahead now to 6 through 10 because this is just all Joe Alt talk. So we're going to skip to 6 through 10.
Goes 7th to the Tennessee Titans in this mock draft. Big support for Will Levis. They still need to address the left tackle spot, but I didn't feel like there was a tackle that was worth that 7th overall pick at this point with Joe Alt off the board. We move to pick number 8. Time for some defense. Atlanta Falcons, Raheem Morris, their new head coach. You always like to make your head coach happy with his first draft pick. They go Dallas Turner, edge rusher from Alabama, incredible athlete, SEC.
Okay, so if we look back there, so we talked about some edge rushers. It's also something that the Saints need, and that there's kind of a lot in the area that the Saints are drafting. And a couple of those guys we were talking about were Dallas Turner and Latu. So them going 8 and 9 would mean if we force the position and we force getting a pass rusher or a linebacker, if we force defense, then we could end up reaching on a pick at 14, which I certainly don't want to do. Now, it's important to note, Field's mock draft does not have Brock Bowers going in the top 10. So this idea that we could trade to 10 or possibly somewhere between 10 and 14 is still alive if we're looking at what he has going on there. So I like that too.
Turner, edge rusher from Alabama, incredible athlete, SEC Defensive Player of the Year this past season, 10 plus sacks, and Mel, their top 2 edge rushers from last year, Bud Dupree, and I guess you can't even call Calais Campbell an edge rusher, but he was their tied leading sacker last year with Dupree, had just 6.5 sacks. So you need more pure pass rush in Atlanta. Number 9, and I want to make sure that we revisit this pick because it was the first inflection point for me. The Bears taking Latu, UCLA edge rusher, To me, the most pro-ready defensive prospect in the entire class. I'll have some thoughts on that in just a moment. And then number 10, Mel, was the first pick where I said to myself the night before the draft, I just wish I could change it up one more time. Olu Fashanu from Penn State, my left tackle, was the pick. Who I wanted to actually move up there, Mel, was Tyler Guyton.
And there's something to remember, too, when you hear this kind of stuff. Like he just said, he thinks Latu is the most pro-ready defensive player in the draft. So that's a guy that if he slips and the Saints end up with him, we're feeling good about that, too, because we need a pro-ready, impact-ready defensive end or pass rusher.
Right tackle in college, but potential left tackle in the pros. Oklahoma, a guy who I just think the NFL is going to love as the pre-draft process continues further. Player with not as much experience as Fashanu, but the upside is immeasurable. What stands out?
Okay, so now we're going to skip ahead now to the what we're all here for, the 11 to 15 Saints area.
Are scheduled to be free agents, so 3 big-time free agents right there. I'm not saying they can't keep all 3 of those guys, but if they are unable to keep one or both of their edges, that's going to create a massive hole. Number 12, J.J. McCarthy going to the Denver Broncos. We can talk about that one, I'm sure, in just a little bit. Pick number 13, Las Vegas Raiders, Byron Murphy II. Maybe their biggest need coming into the draft right now is defensive tackle. Murphy, a guy who I know you and I see a bit differently, but still really like the player, and he can kind of fill some of what they need, that defensive tackle spot.
All right, before I let Field talk about the Saints pick, so Jared Verse is somebody else who we were talking about who we wanted possibly for the Saints. He has him going at 11, so that takes Verse, Latu, and Turner out of the picture. So if that's the case, if at 14 we're forced to take the 4th-ish best edge player, I don't want anything to do with that. I would rather trade down. Now, he has Tyler Guyton here. Okay, Tyler Guyton is who he just said he wanted to put at 10, and he said that the NFL will fall in love with him. So obviously a great offensive line-looking prospect. Something else you may notice, Brock Bowers has yet to go. So Field doesn't have him going in the top 15. Mel said he might go at 5. Like, talk about a discrepancy. It shows you the talent of the player versus how the NFL draft prospect still views tight end versus receiver. So if this is the situation and it falls exactly like this, man, I'll tell you what, J.J. McCarthy going 12, wow. If it falls like this and we don't take Brock Bowers and we take Tyler Guyton, I am going to be an absolute basket case at that night of the draft.
Specifically, 14, New Orleans, they got my guy, Tyler Guyton. Worth noting that Ryan Ramczyk, part of that 2017 draft class, became an all-pro player, has some serious health issues right now. Sounds like that knee that's really bothered him for a couple of years now, Mel, may prevent him from ever being the same player he was.
Yeah, degenerative knee issue. Looks like Ryan Ramczyk may end up certainly not playing at the height of his powers, but also may end up having to retire. And speaking of Ryan Ramczyk and the Saints offensive line, if you don't know by now, I have a Madden franchise channel where we've been playing Saints Madden franchise. I've been taking over as the general manager, the owner, all of that stuff. We're having a ton of fun over there. It's good. Just, you miss football, I miss football. It's a good way to get your football fix. If you are interested in that, go down below in the description. There is a link. We have new episodes on all of the nights or all the days that football would normally come on. So Monday night, Thursday night, and then Sunday at noon Central, we release new games. So same thing as watching the NFL, but you're watching me take over the Saints. So make sure to go down there below. Back to Field.
I'm not even sure he'll play again beyond this season. It seems like there's at least some questions surrounding that. And Trevor Penning, their first-round pick just a couple of seasons ago out of Northern Iowa, has really not met expectations. So offensive tackle feels like a sneaky big need right there for the New Orleans Saints. And at pick number 15,
it is a need, but it is the least impactful possible thing we could do in a time where we need to be as impactful as possible. We need impact. That impact could be an offensive playmaker like Brock Bowers. It also could be someone to stabilize not only the defense, which we need, but to finally get some pressure on the quarterback, which was impossible for us to do last year. So I think offensive tackle sometimes I think when you look at teams like the Saints, who are just kind of average, middling teams, who aren't really good at anything, we're not great at any one thing on the field. If you don't really watch the Saints, I think the easiest possible thing you can do with a team like that is just say, oh, they probably need offensive line help. Like, what team doesn't need offensive line help, right? Like, especially a team in that 500 kind of world. So, yeah, the Saints could always use a good offensive lineman. Every team could use a good offensive lineman, right? Like, if you go back and look at the board, let's see. So, if you look at this board, the Raiders, if you flip Byron Murphy and Tyler Guyton, you could probably sit here and say, yeah, the Raiders, they could use an offensive lineman. Go down here to 15. You could say, yeah, the Colts, they get Tyler Guyton, keep Anthony Richardson up. They want a power run with Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, sure. Like, it's easy to say every team needs that, right? But it's not the impact the Saints need. And I have had a million videos on my thoughts and my philosophy on the offensive line, so I'm not going to bore y'all with that. If you want to see that, check the channel. So we shall continue.
Cornerback spot. He gets cornerback 1 in my mock draft.
I think it's going to be really fun to see how this cornerback position plays out with the workouts coming up, the combine field and pro days. Who ends up being the top corner? Who ends up being CB1? Cooper DeJean from Iowa comes off an injury. Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Quinyon Mitchell had the great Senior Bowl week coming out of Toledo.
Mel is moving his
had a really
head
good
all
year
over
at
the
Clemson. You talk about what Terrion Arnold did at Alabama. Was a guy tackling outstanding.
If y'all hear the motorcycle flying down the road there, if you're wondering what that noise was, no, I am not in immediate danger of a monster truck coming through the window. That is just a motorcycle. So we're going to skip ahead now. So they're going to talk a lot about the J.J. McCarthy to Denver pick, which I think would be a massive mistake. McCarthy's got a cannon. I'll say that. He looks small in stature, but he's got an absolute rocket attached to his arm. We're going to skip ahead to 16 to 20 because I want to see what they say about Brock Bowers here. And if there's any chance that he slides or where that might be a spot where they disagree. So we're gonna get up in there.
Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, goes
so
17th
Field has him going
to Jacksonville.
16 to Seattle.
A major need for an upgrade there. Talisi Fuaga goes to the Bengals at pick number 18, Mel, the big hulking right tackle from Oregon State who just loves to punish defensive players.
Fuaga is so good.
Quinyon Mitchell,
I watched a lot of Oregon State last year.
Toledo cornerback who heads to the Rams.
He's an offensive lineman that
talk
just
about an
mauls
incredible
you.
job that Raheem Morris did this
Stands out on
past
tape.
season, getting as much as he could out of that Rams thin secondary. And then maybe your favorite
Bo
pick,
Nix at
definitely the
22,
internet's
man.
favorite
Oof.
pick, and by favorite I mean
Or
least
20.
favorite pick, Mel. Bo Nix going to the Pittsburgh Steelers from Oregon, the quarterback by way of Auburn. Where do you want to start here? Because I know you just love 2 of these 5 picks.
Yeah, the Brock Bowers one. I understand why you were forced to do that once you didn't give him to some teams earlier. I get the need part of it. I just think he's too good. And I think to lock him into being a tight end, I just can't do it. I think you just move him around. He's like having a receiver entity. I don't know what you want to call it.
Exactly, Mel. I mean, guys, sometimes I even surprise myself, but Mel is 100% right. You can't lock him into just, oh yeah, he's a tight end. Like in today's NFL, he's moving all over the place. And what do you call him? A wide receiver entity? I'm telling y'all, we are ahead of the game per usual. Pretty soon, they're not going to have qualifiers like wide receiver and tight end. It's just going to be just like on defense, how we don't just have defensive end and outside linebacker. Now we have edge. We have all that stuff. So that's what we're going to see with like a tight end wide receiver hybrid is just going to be, whatever the term ends up being. But that's what Brock Bowers is. You move him around. He plays in the slot. He plays tight end. All of that. So I'm with Mel here. There's no way Bowers slides to 16. Too talented, too good. Someone will figure out a way to use him. And man, if he slips past the Saints, whew.
Call him because I don't want to just say he's a tight end. You can do a lot of
I like
things
your
with
offensive
Brock
weapon.
Bowers.
Yeah, offensive weapon, yeah.
So I think Field myself, I don't see him getting down anywhere near this portion of the draft. I think somebody's got to pull the trigger. Somebody's got to take Brock Bowers. They got to do it. He's the 7th highest rated player on my board. He's 8th on your board. You say, who's going to say?
So exactly. So he's 7th. He's the 7th overall player on Mel's board and the 8th overall player on Field's board. But because he's a tight end, Field drops him all the way to 16. No way. No way. I mean, you're talking about, again, 7 and 8 between these two guys. If he's a wide receiver, he's going top 5.
I got to either go up and get him, or
Yeah.
if he slides to me, I can find ways to utilize. Even though we have another guy, now we get these two together. We create major problems. We create nightmares for people. I still think the Chargers. If I'm the Chargers and I got Justin Herbert and I'm the Jim Harbaugh, it screams Chargers. It's Brock Bowers just looks like a Charger to me. Yeah, I think about Kellen Winslow with Dan Fouts, and I'm looking at Justin Herbert and thinking Harbaugh and all the tight ends in Baltimore and in Michigan and everywhere he's been. And this guy can do so much. From the time he stepped on that field at Georgia, he was special. 2 national titles.
Special. He's probably the
Nick
best tight end prospect maybe ever.
Defensive guys not being able to stop him, contain
and that's
him.
saying a lot.
The run after the catch, the way he'll test, the way he gets open, everything about him. Field. Where's the hole? Blocking, he does that. Where's the issue with Brock Bowers? And I don't know how a kid with that skill set and today's game, the way it's played, drops this far down the draft board. So that to me was a little tough to handle. But I get, once you get him to a certain point in the draft, what are you going to do? If you're going needs, obviously teams have other needs other than tight end if you want to lock him into that position.
Yeah.
So if you go back and look at this, right, let's look at this realistically. So let's pretend the Saints want Bowers. Who could take him? Not the Raiders. The Raiders just took the tight end out of Notre Dame. Man, what was his name? Someone in the comments. It'll come to me. Michael Mayer. God bless the recall. Denver, will they take a tight end? Maybe. Sean Payton is I would say, offensive genius, and he could certainly get the most out of someone like Brock Bowers. The Broncos are possible. The Vikings, no, I don't think so. They just traded for T.J. Hawkinson, right? So they have a tight end kind of figured out. I don't think they're going to get Bowers. So if we go before that, if we go into the top, where is it? Here we go. The Jets, possible, I guess. Jets or maybe. Bears, man, they got a ton of needs. I don't think tight end would be one. The Falcons, I don't think, there's no way. There's no way they go Kyle Pitts and then the disaster that's been Kyle Pitts, and then they take another tight end in the top 10. There would be a riot in Atlanta. Tennessee, maybe. Giants, they have Darren Waller, so kind of hard to imagine they go Waller and Bowers. And then top 5. The only team in the top 5 that could possibly take him is the Chargers. There's no way anyone in the top 4 takes him. So, there's some holes there. There's some teams that just flat out do not need a tight end or will not take him, like the Falcons. So, but the rest of them, he could land in a lot of different areas. So hopefully the Saints have Bowers at the top of their want list, and hopefully that's who they are looking at, and it's not Tyler Guyton. Even though Guyton sounds like he'd be a hell of a land for our offensive line, but it's just not enough impact there. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down to the comments below. Let me know what you think about Fields' mock draft 1.0. We'll just quickly take a look at the other ones here. So this is what he's got, 21 through 26. Nothing really stands out there. Cooper DeJean, so from Iowa, I've seen him as high as like top 8. And Field has him at 25. So I think he will move to safety, though. And then 27 to 32, Brian Thomas Jr. drops all the way to 28. A lot of people have been telling me, why don't the Saints take Thomas Jr. at 14? Guys, no, he is not a top 15 wide receiver prospect. All right, don't let last year playing with a Heisman winning quarterback. I think Brian Thomas is good, but he's not. He shouldn't go 14th overall. All right, especially if Brock Bowers is still there. And Adonai Mitchell is the last pick in the first round. Go down below, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know where you think, who you think will fall to the Saints, or will the Saints move up, take somebody. Who do you want them to take? Who do you want them to draft? All of that in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.